And welcome to Outside 50, the US Footy News podcast. I'm Wayne Kraska, and with me, as always, is Rick Shaibani.
How's it going, guys? Good to be back.
And our special guest today is Sara Rohner from the Centennial Tigers.
Hi, nice to be here tonight.
Good to have you, Sarah. The ambassador of officially the newest USAFL club.
That's right.
Yeah, how does it feel?
It's been a lot of hard work over the last few months, but it's kind of neat to be the newest USAFL club as well as the newest women's only club in the USAFL. I guess we aren't just women only, but as of right now, we're only women's team.
So, Sarah, you've come from the Denver Bulldogs women's team. How long were you there, and how did you find the sport there with the Bulldogs?
Yeah, I started playing with the Denver Bulldogs in 2013 and won national championships with them in 13, 14, 15, second place in 17. I didn't play 16. And then I actually knew about footy for a long time. I played rugby in high school, college, post-college, and we would always watch rugby on Fox Sports World. And before the rugby games would start, Australian rules games would be on leading into the rugby games. And then my parents also watched the game back in the 80s when it was on ESPN in the United States. So I've known about it for a long time. I wanted to play it back in 2004. I even remember finding the Denver Bulldogs, but they did not have a women's team at the time. So then I just continued to play rugby. And then a close friend of mine asked me to come out, and she actually had been begging me for years. So just come out and play. And I would always turn her down. And then I finally decided to come out after maybe like 5 years of her begging me. And I've only played in one rugby game since.
Wow.
And it was bad. It was very bad.
I can definitely relate to that, Sarah, because I also came from a rugby background. Thankfully for me, it didn't take 5 years to give footy a go, but I can definitely relate. And my question for you is, since Denver has such a great footy tradition, with USAFL national championships in men's and women's, very strong tradition, lots of really talented people up there. As far as you were concerned, what made you think that 2019, 2020 was the right time to kind of go solo and branch out a little bit?
Well, actually, so I had assumed the position as the women's central rep in the Women's Association for the USAFL because I was really disappointed in the way the tournament had turned out in 2018. I take that back. It was in Nashville. We didn't even know if we were going to have a team to play when we showed up. We ended up having to play on the width of the oval instead of the length because there weren't enough women to play, and it was really disappointing, mostly because of the cost it took to get there and then not getting full games in and not even getting to play on an actual oval. So I was very vocal about my disappointments, and then that happened to get me put into the Women's Association. So so then I joined that, and I made it my mission for 2019 to not only make sure that we had a tournament where we had at least 2 teams where we could play on a full oval, but to actually have a full tournament. And so through my recruitment efforts in Denver and just starting the ball rolling early in the year in 2019, we were able to get 4 women's team. Let's see, we had a round robin tournament. So I guess that would be 4 women's teams. We had 2 Denver teams and then 1 Minnesota team and then like an all-star team or however you want to name that. It was a team of combined. And so we went from having, I think, around 30 women and 20 18 to having over 75 women in 2019. And so seeing that happen with just about 6 months of effort was really exciting. And then whenever we had two women's teams in Denver show up to the regionals, I said, okay, it's time. It's time to split this. There's no sense in, forcing women to drive all over the state of Colorado to come to trainings. So why don't I start a team in the southern part of the city, because we were seeing a lot of drop off later in the season from women who live where I live and further south, who just couldn't make the commute across town anymore.
So Centennial's about 30 minutes south of Denver, is that correct?
30 minutes south without any traffic. Yes.
Well, we've got to take traffic into account. We're
Yes.
here in America, I know. So in your article we just published on US Footy News, I mentioned that you had about 30 players roughly looking at starting pre-season for 2020. How many of those players have had experience at the Denver Bulldogs?
I would say there's about 12 to 14. However, only I think 3 played at nationals with the Denver Bulldogs in 2019. So these were players who played a long time ago and either kind of fell off the team, or they couldn't make the trainings, or they decided to take time off. So I think of those 12 to 15, only 3 attended nationals, and then the others are people I've kept in contact with over the years.
So moving forward to this year, when we still get to see you play out there, what do you think the relationship with your former teammates is going to be like playing against the team that you obviously was successful in playing with?
Well, I know that some folks aren't happy, and I can't control that. But the majority, like I would say 90% of the women or 80% of the women who are still on the Bulldogs, are really, really excited about this. We're all still friends. The women who have joined the team, my team, we're all still friends. And everybody's just really excited to be able to get local games in, because we were having to do metros against ourselves, or we were going to have to pay lots of money to travel. And now we can play as many USAFL sanctioned games as we can fit into the schedule, and it's going to improve everybody's game. So people are excited.
So just to give the listeners a bit of an idea, how far do you have to travel from Denver to play another team?
Well, let's see. Chicago is over 1,000 miles away, and they do not have a full squad. Minneapolis is about just as far. And then you have Houston, which they don't really have a full squad. They have a lot of teams in the Texas area that join together. So, I mean, it's not a day trip.
And how far are the California teams away from you?
Over 1,000 miles. Yeah,
Wow.
it's a plane. It's a flight. There's nowhere. We are an island. There's no driving distance teams.
That simply amazes me how successful even the men's team has been in Denver for that same reason, how well they've been able to come together and train for so many years and be so competitive. If they're not knocking on the door of the Divi 1 final, they're not far off it. And they won 8, I believe, in a string. So that has been one of the certainly the hallmarks of that team, to be able to travel the way they have. But certainly it is probably the bane of a lot of other clubs around the country having to do that. And certainly a lot of clubs suffer from the attrition of players over several years after they have to travel. And regional development has been one of my favourite subjects for a couple of years now. And it's one of the reasons why I started a new team outside of Atlanta, an hour and a half out here in Rome, Georgia, and also were assisted Savannah and Jacksonville within our driving distance in the past 12 months as well.
Mhm.
So the travel aspect for especially the Denver women's team, I think would be a super bonus for them to stay enthusiastic and keep their retention rate as well, not only your own but also theirs. So I don't see it as going to be, if it even it is a friendly rivalry, it's going to be great for both teams, right?
Yeah. No, and my hope is that by playing games against each other, it improves both teams' skill levels and knowledge of how the game is played. And then when we travel to regionals, since our skill levels brought up, then when we play those teams, we bring up their skill levels. And then when we go to nationals and we play other teams across the nation, that it just continues to bring the level of the game up.
Yeah, no, that's incredibly positive with like the amount of development you guys have done. And I don't know if you've been involved with the Freedom before, Sarah, but are there any ex Bulldog players or players who've represented the U.S. in the Freedom or the Liberty sides who have come over to Centennial yet?
I played for the Freedom in the 2014 IC, and I earned a spot on the all world team that year.
Con-
Um,
Congrats.
Thanks.
Well
That was the
done.
pinnacle.
All downhill from here, right?
That's why I didn't go back because I knew I was never going to do that again. Um, and then I also did go down to Australia in May and trained with Collingwood Gold Coast Suns, Williamstown, and the Western Bulldogs. But there are no other Freedom players joining this team. I would be the most experienced player, skills wise, but also years under my belt.
Cool. Funny that you mentioned that you were down in Oz. I was actually in Melbourne playing this past year, and since you mentioned the Bulldogs, I actually got to see Danny Marshall in action a few times. So it was really good to see a fellow Yank doing well. But yeah, it's a
Hmm.
shame we hadn't connected previously because that would have been really
Yeah.
cool.
Sarah, you tell us about your coach. You've signed a new coach to the team. How did that come about? And tell us a little bit about his background.
Sure. Yeah. His name is Destry Gillette, and I've known him since I started playing back in 2013 for the Bulldogs. Um, he was always just a very friendly person and would come out to the women's trainings and kind of just lend a hand or be an extra body when we needed someone for Metro games. And but he had not been around the scene for a long time, and part of the reason was because he had multiple knee surgeries. He also said to me, I came into the sport as an old guy and I left an older guy. So he was older when he joined the sport. And then,
I know the feeling.
and he also lives on the side of town that I'm in. And so he even said to me, I tried getting across town to training once or twice and just gave up because it was taking too much time to get there. And so he came recommended from a good friend, a good mutual friend who was one of the original Bulldogs way back in the late 90s. And so we connected and he was ecstatic that I asked him. He was very honored, and it was kind of interesting because I had messaged him way a long time ago and he never responded, and I thought, well, that's kind of strange. He's always a really nice guy. Maybe I offended him. Well, his phone had broke and he missed my message along the way. And so then he started commenting on all of our new social media posts. And I said, hey, did you get my message? He said, no, I didn't. And he went back and checked and he was like, I think it was within a couple days. He was like, yeah, I'll be your coach. So made me sweat it.
I'm, I'm
Yeah.
Oh, that's huge.
I'm sure that was a
I
little
was
nerve wracking, just
I
just
was
a bit.
I was planning on having to coach the team, and I really didn't want to. I don't think player coach scenarios work in many sports. I watched it fail a lot of times in rugby. And so when he said I'm in, it was like a huge sigh of relief.
Certainly, I think it's a pretty big decision that most clubs take at the start of the year. If they're lucky enough for their coach to come back from the previous year, they clap their hands and give everyone high fives.
Mhm.
Um, so, what's from here on? Are we ready to start training? I know it's probably a little chilly in south of Denver at the moment. So, what's the game plan leading up to our first game, and when would that be?
Yeah, so we're actually doing once a month, we're going to do skills clinics. The first one is coming up on Sunday, February 2nd, with the USA Revolution head coach Tom Ellis. And he had approached me and asked if we would be interested in running these clinics as a way to recruit, but also as a way to build everybody's skills up. And so it's designed for basketball court use, and it's a program that's used for middle schoolers in Australia because that's kind of the skill level we're at here is middle school. And so it's very basic, teaching handballs, doing small group work. I don't think there's any kicking involved in it. And so he's going to run this first clinic for us, and then we're going to do one a month until May. And then our team will take over the reins from Tom and be able to teach these clinics to our future recruits and our current women. Our head coach wants to start training late March and moving into April, but that's weather dependent because we get snow here until late May. And then first games will hopefully we can get on the schedule with the Bulldogs in May.
That sounds like a awesome plan. Do you guys have a schedule officially mapped out yet, or is it all still tentative?
It's all still tentative. We are hoping to be able to travel to the Central Regional Tournament. It's not a requirement for us to be able to play in the Western Regional Tournament, which is being held in Denver, even though Denver and Colorado and Centennial is not in the Western region. So Denver has to submit a team to Centrals in order to play in Westerns. But since we're a new club, we don't have that restriction put on us. But we think we have enough women to be able to do a trip down to Dallas, and that's in mid-June. And then July we'll play in the tournament in Westminster, and then nationals. I've had a couple other USAFL teams reach out to me who want to come travel to Colorado. So we're just kind of in the early stages of planning that out.
Awesome. And last question on my end. We'll wrap it up with you, Kraz. But obviously, you guys are, since you're in Centennial, you're geared more towards the southern suburbs and the surrounding areas. But given that Colorado is, somewhat compact, most of the states within 3-4 hours of each other, are you guys hoping to maybe reach down to Colorado Springs or Durango or any other areas to get recruits anytime soon?
Well, I think Colorado Springs would be definitely doable for people. It's only about 45 minutes to an hour without traffic, but it's still pretty far away.
And weather permitting.
Yeah. Because we have the passes and the high elevations that prohibit travel.
Of course. Yeah.
So, I mean, we are open to anybody joining our team from wherever, but Colorado Springs, I would assume, would be the farthest. When you just get too far away, when you see people from Pueblo, that's, pushing like 90 minutes to 2 hours.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Sarah, the other thing we saw that you received a grant from the Colorado Women's Sports Foundation. Tell us about that.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a sports fund association that is based in Colorado, and they are run by a bunch of women in their 60s, 50s, 60s who played sports their whole lives and recognize the need to help women fund their athletic goals. And it was just one of those. I had a friend who volunteers for them, and I asked her about it, and she told me to apply, and we applied, and we were recognized with quite a few other organizations as well as individual recipients. And so it was really great to get $500 and kind of put Australian rules on the map at that ceremony.
That's awesome. I'm sure a lot of other clubs have probably thought about funding through grants, but really probably don't have the time to go through the process, which can be quite complicated, obviously. For it to
Mm-hmm.
sort of land in your lap, that's pretty lucky. A
Yeah.
lot of things going your way at the moment, Sarah, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, you told me just prior to, we have 16 sponsors already.
Mm-hmm.
How do you come about getting 16 sponsors when you've only been going like not even so many months?
Yeah, so we have 16 sponsors slash partners. Couple of those are partners. So, and then I've just kind of built my reputation with among my friends for my dedication to the sport. They all kind of followed my story when I went down to Australia last year. And then I just have a huge network of professionals and friends who run their own businesses and a lot of other contacts in the footy community locally and then in Australia. So we had a really, really great donation from a private donor who works for the Computer Share Company, which was founded and is based in Melbourne. It's right near Princess Park, I believe it's Princess Park, where the Magpies train.
No,
Is that right?
everywhere
No.
Carlton train at Princess
Ooh.
Park.
Oh, sorry.
Kraz is a big Carlton fan,
Wow.
so
What's the
that
name?
was.
Just cut that out.
That's funny.
What's the name of the park
Eh,
that Collingwood
Victoria
train at?
Park.
Anyway,
Victoria.
Victoria Park.
Yeah, Victoria Park.
So anyway, so Computer Share. So we're gonna get their logo put on our shorts and jerseys, and then we've had a lot of local support from credit unions and realtors and mortgage funders and all that kinds of stuff. And I just kind of promote this as not only a sport, but as a way to empower women. And it's also a community thing. So we're building up the community around us. We're encouraging people to come out and get fit, and people are really taking to that.
Okay, before we close, how about telling us about how you play the game? What position do you play? Where would you like to play if the coach give you that option? And some of the best games that you've played, what was the part of the game that you enjoyed contributing to the most?
Sure. So I've always been in the midfield because I love the offensive side of the game as well as the defensive side. Coming from rugby, I take pride in my tackling. Like, people love to see the big hits. Like, I know that they kind of that's one of the things that people either love or they don't. They love to watch the tackles or they don't think it's necessary. But for me, I love it, and I kind of like to make an impact on the field and make a statement. Um, so if I had a choice, though, my favorite position would be a roving forward pocket where I could just do whatever I want and then not have anybody mark on me.
I think that
That's typically,
that's everyone's
that's
favorite
typically what I
position.
play. Yeah. Well, it's my actual position, which is nice. So
I did get to play that at
yeah.
nationals in 2018, and that was a lot of fun because I was going from goal to goal and didn't have to worry about anybody following me or getting in my way. Which was also one of my best games or favorite games. We were down to the Minnesota Freeze at halftime. Like, I don't even know. It was like 16-6 or something like that. And they were celebrating at halftime. And we were like, oh, like, we got to keep doing it. And we came back and I scored 2 goals within a minute. And we ended up winning the
Wow.
game like 21-20 or something very close. And it was one of those team effort games. And one of the memories I'll look back on fondly. And then my other probably best moment was at the International Cup in 2014 when I scored a 55-meter goal. So,
Wow.
Awesome.
Be remiss of me to ask about your experience going down to Australia and training with the AFL women's teams. Can you just touch on that a little bit? How did that come about? And what did you find different from team to team? And what were they looking for?
yeah, so I kind of I had heard about it and wanted to try it, and somebody I knew pushed me to do it, and they said, come down, you could train with the Bulldogs, you could train with these other teams. And I went down there, and it was a good experience overall. The teams were different. The Bulldogs were very like hardcore, serious. They meant business, the entire time. Um, Collingwood, they were a lot of fun. They had a great time leading up to the training, but then as soon as they hit the oval, then it was game on, very serious. And then up at the Gold Coast, everybody was just very relaxed, and it might be part of that lifestyle up there, kind of like California here, where it's low key and everybody's just out to have a good time. And But they were a really talented team as well. Even though they're up in Queensland, they had a lot of phenomenal athletes playing the game.
So has anyone reached back to you since that time about playing down there?
Unfortunately not. I think my age was what got me. So they're almost 35 years old. And I had a couple of clubs really interested, and then they rescinded their, I guess, offers to come out and train and meet with the club once they found out my age. And so that was disappointing because it's something I can't control, but it's just one of those things. So
Well, one day they'll have a super league down there. That's for the over 35-year-olds. For anyone who doesn't
yeah,
know, in America, that down in Australia there are massive over 35s, over 40s, over 45s. I think there's even an over 53s league for guys, especially. Um, and it's something probably we can start looking at here in the US as well, as a lot of players now have been playing 10 to 15 years, don't necessarily want to run around with some of the younger guys and can enjoy regionals and nationals by playing with people who are similar age and speed. Is probably what I'll
yeah.
add.
It would be nice to get to the point where the population of athletes in the game are, as we age, we still keep playing, but then we have the younger people um, filling our roles and replacing us. So,
Sure. Well, it's been fantastic to talk to you today, Sarah, and we wish you luck from everyone probably around the country in your success of your team. It sounds like you've hit the ground running, and I know it's not been easy. It is always hard work, especially gathering sponsors and paying back to sponsors is also difficult. And then there's a player management, coaching, admin, counting the pennies. It's a lot of work, and kudos to you to be where you are at the moment and prep for your first season. Um, we hope you do well, and hopefully we can get you back on outside 50, maybe just after regionals. One of the regionals will get you to call back in, and we'll have a chat and see how you went.
yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers, Sarah. Glad you could come on.
Thanks.
And that's it for Outside 50 for now. If you'd like to be a contributor to this podcast, drop us a line at usfootynews@gmail.com or check out our website at usfootynews.com.
Outside 50 is brought to you with the help of Play Aussie USA. Play Aussie is the only place in the USA you can buy the famous Sharon football, a proud sponsor of the USAFL. Visit them at playaussie.com.